Problem 8 asks us to write an equation to match the following word problem. Jackie deposited $17.23 in her savings account. The balance after the deposit was $52.96. What is J, the amount of money she had in the account before the deposit? Well, depositing money, we've talked about this several times this year, is adding money to your bank account. So we're going to take the original amount of money, J, the amount that she had before the deposit, and we're going to add $17.23 to that amount, and that will equal the amount after the balance after the deposit, which is $52.96, which makes sense because J should be some amount of money that's smaller than $52.96 because she had less money in the account before depositing the $17.23. So for a problem like this, we just need to write the equation and we're good. Let's look at problem number 9. Drake leaves school and walks 3 miles to the comic book store. He shops for a comic book and then walks 3 more miles to his house. Circle the graph which best depicts the story. Graph A, first we need to, if we're looking at a graph, we need to look at everything on the graph, especially the axis labels. So looking at these 3 graphs, the y-axis is labeled distance traveled on all 3. The x-axis is labeled time. So as time passes, we see what's happening or how the distance is changing. So let's read the problem again. Drake leaves school and walks 3 miles to the comic book store. So all 3 of these graphs, A, B, and C, show that happening. As time passes, the distance is increasing. Let me switch to, I can't. Okay, as time passes, the distance is increasing on all 3 of these. So far all 3 graphs match. And looking at the scale, looks like each line on the y-axis represents 1 mile because he traveled 3 miles. So then we have a little difference. A and B look the same, but C looks different. He's at the comic book store shopping for a comic book, so some amount of time will be passing while he's shopping, and the distance will not be changing while he's shopping for the comic book. So far we could have A or B could be our graph, but C could not be our graph because C shows that immediately after he gets to the comic book store, he starts traveling again. But there's something else wrong with C. We'll see that in a minute. But definitely, C is definitely not the right graph for this situation. Okay, then he shops for a comic book and then he walks 5 more miles to his house. So if he walks 3 more miles to his house. So if he walks 3 more miles, should the distance traveled be decreasing like it is in A, or should it be increasing like it is in B? Well, that all depends on how the axis is labeled. The axes on these graphs are labeled distance traveled. So if he walks 3 more miles in any direction, the distance traveled will increase. So B is the correct graph. Had the axis been labeled distance from home, something like that, then A would be correct because he would walk 3 miles away from his house, then he would be at the comic book store for a while, and then he would walk 3 miles home, so the distance from his home would decrease until he got back home, which would be 0 distance from his home. But the label on the axis makes a big difference, is crucial when you're trying to solve a problem like this. So make sure you read the axes labels and understand what they mean when you're choosing the correct graph. Okay, we'll pick up this review with problem 10 on the next video.